article from MSNBC, of course. So just wait for it here. How to stop Russia from recruiting the next Trump is what this website article says. Says voters deserve to know more about who they're electing. Dun, dun, dun. And look at that. Look at that shadowy looking image that they're using. We're going to be electing these Russian puppets is what Emma said. I mean, come on, guys. This is February of 2021. They've been going on with this for 4 years, and we never came up with any sort of real evidence. Okay, Russia bought some Facebook ads. That's what they've got. And they're still going on with this narrative that Russia is going to put in the next president if we're not diligent, okay? So it goes on to say here that a new book provides fresh details and further confirmation of a Russian intelligence service grooming former President Donald Trump as a potential asset. These revelations raise the question of whether a suspected foreign asset could ever rise again to high office. Spoiler alert, it can and will happen again unless voters demand changes to how America publicly vets candidates for elected office. Oh, so this is now saying that we need to vet candidates for elected office. I wonder how they're wanting to do that. I mean, I thought that they did with Trump. They kept saying he was a Russian puppet the whole time. Wasn't that enough vetting? It says right here, the book in question, called American Compromat by journalist Craig Unger, features the claims of Yuri Shvets, a former major in the Soviet spy service, who details the KGB's 40-year attempt to successfully hook the man who would ultimately occupy the Oval Office. Dun, dun, dun. Shvets operated inside the U.S. in the 1980s using a cover position as a Washington-based correspondent for TASS, the Russian news agency, a mission he detailed in his 1995 book, Washington Station: My Life as a KGB Spy. Stop there for a second. Now, let's just back that up. When they said that he used a cover position as a Washington-based correspondent for TASS, the Russian news agency, anyone working at RT and Sputnik needs to be worried right now, because actually Jen Psaki was asked about RT and Sputnik and these Russian sponsored or Russian paid for Russian government funded media that's broadcast here in the United States, asking about essentially the threat. I'm not sure exactly how the question was posed, but she was asked about those networks. And she basically said, yeah, they're propaganda and everybody should be aware that they're propaganda. So that is frightening for those who enjoy RT or watch RT, or even Russian Americans here in the United States who like to watch RT or listen to Sputnik radio or whatever. That is, so that's where they're going. I mean, listen, they're not going to go after BBC. They're not going to go after DW. They're not going to go after France 24. They're not going to go after those outlets, but they are going to be going after RT, and they are going to be going after Sputnik. So that's something to watch out for. They're going to say, well, these are propaganda arms. So they go on to say here now an American citizen, Shvets explains to Unger how Trump caught the eye of the Russian spy agency in 1977 when he married his first wife, a Czech model named Ivanka Zelnikova. As described in the book, the Czech intelligence service was joined at the hip with the KGB, and they worked in concert to spot and assess Western recruitment targets for Russia. So what are they saying? Are they saying that Ivanka's mom, that Ivana was a KGB recruitment asset or something? Says that Unger's book provides an account of how as Trump prepared to open his first large property in Manhattan, the Grand Hyatt, New York, he purchased 200 television sets for the hotel from a Soviet emigre who owned, I don't know what an emigre is, who owned a Fifth Avenue electronics store. Shvets revealed to Unger that the store was controlled by the KGB, and the emigre owner was a spotter assessor for the Russian government. Later in 1987, Trump and Ivana were invited to visit Moscow and St. Petersburg. Unger writes that while there, Trump was surrounded by KGB operatives who skillfully stroked his high-maintenance ego, teased him with the vision of a Trump property in Russia, and planted a suggestive seed that he should consider running for office. So don't you see? Russiagate was right after all. Trump was a Russian asset, and this guy's book details it. And it turns out his wife might have been actually a KGB spy. And it turns out that this company he bought televisions from was a Russian company controlled by the KGB. And surprise, surprise, when Trump, this mega businessman from the United States, showed up to Russia, High-level people wanted to be around him, including the KGB. This is a huge surprise for all of us, isn't it? Now we know he was a Russian asset, and we have to watch out because the next one is being groomed underneath our noses, and that might be the next president of the United States. So Candace Owens, watch out. Because you might have been groomed by the Russians. Clearly, Bernie Sanders was. I mean, I think that's obvious, right? Bernie Sanders clearly went on his honeymoon to Russia, set up a sister city between Burlington, Vermont, and Russia. He was all about Russia. He loved Russia. He praised Russia. Clearly, Bernie Sanders was Putin's puppet as well. Putin got, the Democrats and the Republicans in 2016. His plans worked. He was playing chess. He got us into checkmate nearly. Only Hillary Clinton was potentially going to thwart his plans. And Bernie Sanders didn't end up getting that nomination after all. But who knows? Maybe Hillary Clinton is actually a Russian asset. It's always the person, right, who smelt it, dealt it. And that's Hillary Clinton at this point, I would say. She's the one going around pointing the finger at everybody else. So maybe she's actually projecting, and maybe she's the Russian asset. One thing that I have to ask is, okay, let's just go down this road for a second and say Trump was actually Putin's puppet. That and that there's going to be another one that's coming into office soon. Most likely the next Republican candidate, or if there's some progressive Democrat that rises again like Bernie Sanders. Obviously, they're all Putin puppets. Tulsi Gabbard, Putin puppet, right? Everybody's a Putin puppet. Anybody who's challenging the establishment anyway, anybody who's a threat. Let's just go down that road. What is Putin trying to accomplish? What does he want exactly? What is it that his puppet is going to do? What's the game? What's the end game here? What's the plan? Because it's really unclear to me what that plan would be. So what's interesting here, though, is people say, well, all they wanted was a president, somebody in office. All Putin wants is someone in office who's going to go soft on Russia. Someone who's going to look away, who's going to let Putin get away with whatever he wants, right? Somebody who's going to just be soft on Russia, maybe lift a bunch of sanctions, let Russia prosper, maybe back down on NATO. All of these various maybe. So what would a Putin puppet actually do? Here's something interesting, though. On January 1st, CNN's Fareed Zakaria was on New Day, being interviewed by the hosts. And this is actually what he had to say about Trump and how Trump was in regards to Russia.
And Fareed, what about the dynamic with our perceived enemies like Iran or Russia?
I think in general, there isn't going to be as much difference as people imagine. The Biden folks are pretty tough on Russia, Iran, North Korea. The dirty little secret about the Trump administration was that while Donald Trump had clearly had a kind of soft spot for Putin, the Trump administration was pretty tough on the Russians. They armed Ukraine, they armed the Poles, they extended, NATO operations and exercises in ways that even the Obama administration had not done. They maintained the sanctions. So I don't think it will be that different.
Oh, okay. So actually, the dirty little secret is that Trump was hard on Russia, that he actually wasn't all that soft on Russia after all, and that Joe Biden, now that he's in office, is probably not going to do anything different because Trump wasn't all that bad when it comes to Russia. He wasn't all that soft when it comes to Russia. That's the dirty little secret that they now let us know now that Trump is out of office. So Fareed Zakaria says this. When Trump is, this is New Year's Day, 2021. Now the dirty little secret can come out. Oh, okay. So it turns out that he armed the Ukrainians. He armed the Poles. He told NATO allies to beef up their spending. He expanded NATO. He expanded the sanctions on Russia. I mean, this is really what is going on here. And they're saying this is actually the dirty little secret. Now, here is Obama's former defense secretary. This is Robert Gates. He was actually defense secretary under both George W. Bush and Barack Obama. And this is what he had to say about Trump and whether or not Trump was soft or difficult on Russia.
And it's a favorite talking point for the Trump administration to say that they've been the toughest on Russia of any administration.
And in some respects, that's true.
In some respects.
And the sanctions.
You're a Cold Warrior. You actually believe that?
I think in terms of the magnitude of the sanctions that have been put on Russia, they are more significant than have been imposed in the past.
So there he goes. He says that actually Trump was harder on Russia in regards to sanctions. She says, you actually believe that? You know, she's trying to push back like she's being real tough on the former defense secretary from George Bush and Obama. And he sits there and he says, well, yeah, in some respects, Trump was harder on Russia because Trump actually had harder sanctions on Russia than other presidents. So there you go. The dirty little secret is out. And the dirty little secret is out, and it turns out that Trump was actually harder on Russia than these guys want to make it seem.